Love Where You Live is brought to you by Live, Love Local Michigan, the online and print magazine celebrating Michigan through amazing adventures, stunning photography, high-profile content, and more. Subscribe to our monthly print magazine for exclusive content you won't find on our free online magazine. With your subscription, you also receive automatic entry into our monthly subscriber Spend Local Michigan and surprise pop-up giveaways with prizes so magical, you'll think you found a pot of gold at the end of a Michigan rainbow. Subscribe online at livelovelocalmi.com. This is episode 2 of Reconciliation and Healing of Michigan's Indigenous Peoples. This conversation is with Bob Hazen of the Lac Vieux Desert Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians.
My name is Robert Hazen. I'm a Lac Vieux Desert tribal elder, and this is the story of when we were taken away. In the summer of 1955, I was 5 years old. The government, agents, and a Jesuit priest started coming around my grandfather's house, where we as a family were living with my grandfather at the time. We as children did not know the events that would change our lives forever. The government and the Catholic Church had a program in place since 1844 that gave them the right to take children away from their homes and place them in orphanages or Catholic schools. This program was designed to assimilate Indian kids into white society. Their motto was, "Kill the Indians, spare the child." Our elders of the tribe were threatened with jail if they refused to surrender to their children. So in August, the priest came back with a station wagon and asked us if we wanted to go to town to get ice cream. Who wouldn't? So all us kids headed to town with him. He told us first that we had to stop at a church, where he and another priest began baptizing us. Heck, for ice cream, they could pour water on us all day. When I got back home, I told my grandmother what happened, and she told me that they were trying to steal my soul. I didn't know what she meant at the time. So in September, the priest and the sheriff came back. The priest with a bus, and the sheriff said he would take us to a reform school if we did not get on the bus. There were 9 of us kids at the time. The other families had to give up their children as well. The bus traveled through the UP, picking up kids from different towns and reservations. Every time the crying stopped, it would start again when new kids got on the bus. They took us on a ferry across the Straits of Mackinac to Harbor Springs, about 300 miles from our home. When we got off the bus and saw the nuns for the first time, it scared me. The older boys were talking in our Ojibwe language, and the nuns started slapping them around, and we were told we could not talk our language, only English. It was just the beginning of the abuse we were about to experience. They, the nuns, took us into a big room and told us we were going to get a haircut. At the time, I had really long, curly hair. It was all the way down my butt. The boys were cut bald, and the girls had all got page cuts. After they cut your hair, they put white powder on our heads to delouse us. It was very traumatic for us all. They took away our clothes, even though our parents brought us new ones, and they gave us new clothes to wear. Wherever we went, we had to walk single file, Indian style. If we talked or whispered, we would get slapped. The older boys talked back and were beaten severely. A lot of the foods we ate or tried to eat, we never experienced before. The Indian kids never drank milk before, and the younger ones messed their pants. That called for a spanking. The kids refused to eat the food. They were slapped or punched, and we had to pray for before and after all these so-called meals. There were sexual predators amongst the nuns. Pick out some good-looking boy or girl and abuse them. I will not tell you the details of my own experience with the nuns, but I will say it was very confusing to me. I always wondered if the nuns could be so cruel to us, physically, mentally, and sexually abuse us. What was their God like? I spent 8 years in that place and 2 years in another place called Boysville, down by Clinton, Michigan. The education I received was second to none. You know those Catholics. The price I paid in a whole was devastating to our tribe as a whole. They broke the family bonds and turned everyone into alcoholics. Where there was love, only hatred, anger, and rage took its place. Where there was respect, distrust and resentment took over. All good feelings were shut off from both the parents and the elders. The kids vowed to themselves that no one was ever going to hurt them again, physically, mentally, or spiritually. When the nuns beat us for believing in our Creator and replaced it with their God, it left a wound in our soul that could never be erased. Self pity is a feeling I cannot have, for it'll only destroy people's ambitions if you choose to dwell in it. Like the saying goes, I felt sorry because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. Respect them. The loss of self worth, self hatred, and self confidence, a wounded soul, and low self esteem is so deep in us. The school taught us to hate ourselves for who we were and what we believed in, and instilled in us a great fear and shame that is still prevalent today. When you are traumatized and your behavior physiologically gets stuck at that age, when you come under stress in difficult situations, you revert back to the age you were when you were first traumatized. The nuns taught us that being Indian was bad and we should despise ourselves for who we were. Self hatred and low self esteem and great shame was instilled in us all. While this was happening to the Indian children, white children were being indoctrinated by TV. Cowboy and Indian shows were on television every day and night. There was about 50 uh, cowboy western shows in the beginning of television, and all you heard was dirty, rotten redskins, dirty, stinking Indians. As we were taught not to like ourselves for who we were, the white kids were learning that Indians were stinky and they were bad, and all they do is steal. What was happening to us was also happening to the white people, that indoctrination. And little of what happened was in my eighth grade year, in the winter time, we went sleigh riding one time, and we had these big wooden bobsleds, and the nuns got on one. They wanted me to drive them down this hill. So I, it was a really nice big hill if you'd go faster and help with it. And so I drove them down there, and on the bottom there was a big white tree, white pine. It was really big, and I drove that right for it, and I jumped off at the last second, and the nuns hit the tree, and some of them and they ended up with broken bones. And I got sent down to Boysville at this time, none of that. So that's why I didn't finish out the eighth grade there. I finally took my hatred of the place out on them. So after I got sent to Boysville, and it was run by, instead of nuns, there was people were like priests, but they're called brothers, and they were in charge of that place. It was a high school, and I I went there for till the 10th grade. I finished the 10th grade there. I was taught how to which brothers to watch out for because they were sexually abusing some of the kids there. My my brothers and some of my cousins were down there already, and they more or less made me aware of who to stay away from. So I wanted to finish high school in Watersmeet because no one ever graduated from Watersmeet High School since my uncle did in 1949, and I wanted to be a Watersmeet Nimrod. So I graduated in 1967, and it was a pretty rough place at that time. I had to fight my way through there, but I stuck with it, and my good friend there, Tom McGeesick, he followed in my footsteps, and we paved the way that Native Americans graduate there every year now. After I graduated, a year later, I got drafted into the Army, and I went to Vietnam. And I served 11 months, 22 days, and 3 hours there. And if you ever hear someone say they weren't scared over there, they never were there, or they're damn lying, you know. In them schools, they didn't teach you nothing about doing anything with your life. So when I got out of the service, I went to Milwaukee Technical College, where I took up auto mechanics, diesel mechanics, welding, carpentry, and electricity, so I could make something out of my life. I went over to Iraq to help build a city over there in 1978. I was there when the Iraq and Iran war started. I caught the last plane out of Baghdad as the rockets began to fall. Me and my wife, today we live in Bruce Crossing, Michigan. I help other veterans get their benefits, their compensation, and that from the VA. If it wasn't for the VA, I wouldn't be the man I am today because I spent 2.5 years in a psychiatric ward over in Toma, Wisconsin, and they found out that what was behind all my craziness and behavior. I was one of the worst cases of post-traumatic stress they came across from. A lot of it is due to being in these Catholic orphanages, where I seen one time there was a kid got beat so bad that he was puked up blood clots in a bathroom. Uh, I don't know, the floor was just covered with this all over. And I never seen him after that. I think his name was Dason, Richard Dason or something. I don't know if he died or he got beat up pretty bad and he had some internal injuries or something. When I came back from Vietnam, Watersmeet was at that time. I think it's even in the state of Michigan that they found out it was the most prejudiced town in the state of Michigan because my my tribe was the last tribe to be discovered in a country. I don't know. I think it was. They said that in 1922 there was something in the Grand Rapids newspaper that Aborigines discovered in Upper Michigan. We still practiced our old ways at that time, and the native ways, and that's why the nuns were so cruel to us, is that they were trying to save our soul. But we just we weren't in that much contact with white society. We chose to be true to our own ways, and they called us pagans and heathens and trash, water sweet trash. They figured that they were really doing the work of God by saving our soul, and all they did was teach us to hate authority and hate ourselves for who we were. It was really it was really terrible. But anyhow, when I got back from Vietnam, me and a bunch of other guys, we went into a bar there, and it had a sign behind the bar that said, "No dogs or Indians allowed." So we got in a fight with a bunch of people there, and they threatened to go get guns, so we went and got guns. And so when they come around the corner, they had a nice fiberglass Corvette. Shot the ass end, me and another guy shot it up and blew the ass end off with buckshot. So there was a big write up, tribal uprising in Waters. We all ended up in jail. They were trying to get us for attempted murder, but the lieutenant governor came up here and found out Watersmeet was the most prejudiced town in Michigan at the time. So that's how they got their name. But now it's different. There's still pockets of it, of prejudice, but that's going to be all over. Look at what's happening now with the Jews and everybody else. So everybody gets their turn in that barrel. I was just glad that I was part of changing some of the history that we went through. I participated in all the walks that they have for the boarding schools, the missing children. For a guy that swore that he would never go back to church, here I am. I'm the president of the Methodist Church now. I'm dedicated. I had it. But that's who I am. I found my spirituality, and I found that God isn't the person that the nuns were telling us who he was, and their God maybe there's there's only one. There's only one God, and no matter if you believe in native culture or Catholic, Protestant, whatever, Methodist, it's all the same person, but we just call them different names. I'm all right. Now, me and my wife, we love each other for who we are, and we can be honest. You know, I I've been sober for going on my 25th year now, so I've got, I got a good life. My kids are one is going to be he's teaching up at Michigan Tech. He's professor, becoming a professor now, and the other one is doing well. He's a head of security in the casino. Everybody will be home for Thanksgiving. And I got a lot to be thankful for. And thank you for letting me share my story.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing it. I feel like I don't want to ask questions and take away from the power of everything you just said.
No, you can, please.
Do you still practice any of your anything from
Oh,
your
yes.
native culture as far as
Oh,
do
yes.
you?
Every once in a while, I'll smoke my pipe, and I I started singing on the drum, and I go to powwows, and I participate in the dancing, and I carry in the children's staff at powwows. I got a staff upstairs that I carry in. The veterans are treated with respect, so I really like that. But everybody that went into these Catholic orphanages or wherever, they're all warriors, of the tribe they belong to. And they should be proud that they have the courage, to be able to speak, even though it does get kind of stuck in there, and it's very traumatizing to talk about some places because of the experience. When people talk, it gets them by the throat. It wells them up
Yeah.
because it's like it's happening all over again. That trauma that we went through,
Why do you think it's important to talk about it?
because it's part of the history that uh, history is only a lot of it gets left out of because whoever writes the book only tells his side of the story. And a lot of people don't know what happened to the Native Americans, why they behave the way they do. Where perception of life comes from. It comes from my generations and the generations before that give them that perception, like because the white people, all Indians are good. There's good and bad in all society, and you can't just say, oh, you're gonna hate this one because he's white, or hate of this one because he's a Indian. That's each person has his own good and bad qualities, and, and you gotta take that on a personal basis, person to person. You don't try to cover it with a generalization. I wrote a I wrote a poem when I was in the when I was in the psychiatric hospital, when I was first found out what was behind all my craziness, my crazy behaviors. It's called Footsteps in the Shadows, and it goes like this: where have you gone, the boy of my youth? What you have become? I would like to know the truth. You run through the shadows of my mind as swift as a deer. So the images of you through the smoke are unclear. The drums of old are silent now, the memories how they wane. Nothing much has survived the past but this terrible pain. Rekindle my spirit like a campfire and set forth my hopes with a roar. Fill my heart with love and hope, and on the wings of eagles, let my future soar. The guns of war are silent now. The warrior has come home. The fears of our past haunt us and cause us roam. Cast your fears upon the wind and do away with your sorrow. For a new life begins today to be shared with others tomorrow. Though you run through the shadows of my mind with swift and grace, you will always be in my heart with the sun upon your face. So that's that.
It's beautiful. It's powerful. Do you feel like healing from this is just something that you're going to walk through the rest of your life?
Yeah. When you acknowledge it, then you can change. You can change it. First, you got to acknowledge it. And a lot of people in my tribe, they they're still suffering from it, and a lot of them are still abusing alcohol really bad. A lot had died and never knew what was behind all their craziness, all their crazy behaviors. There was 9 of us kids in my family, and there's only 2 of us left now. And all of them are
Hmm.
passed on. And my younger
And
brother,
every one of you went to the school.
yeah, and none of them. There was one brother. He was married 5 times. He never, and a sister that's living now, and she just continuously buys everything, trying to fill this emptiness in her. because she has no spirituality. A lot of them just deal with tangible things, what they can feel, touch, smoke, drink, brew, whatever. But that's they have no. Uh, their spirit is so torn that they can't. They just can't get it together. A lot of them are so afraid to practice the old ways, the native ways, go to sweat lodges or try to heal, or they don't. They refuse to talk about it. They'd rather try to drink their way, keep it in the back of their mind. My younger brother, he was true to the Catholic Church, but he drank all the time. He was at treatment 5 times, but he knew the program, but he just wouldn't acknowledge that he got damaged in the orphanages. And he always kind of covered it up, saying, "Oh, they give us a good education. They fed us." But look at the price he paid in his life, what he lost. His self-respect is. He didn't even like himself that he wouldn't stop drinking. Uh, and I miss him. I miss him all. But, but our bonds of our family were so broken because if we weren't in the boarding schools, they would put us in foster homes or send us to some camps, some summer camps, so they would bring them bonds from the family and the culture. And it was really sad that what they went through to keep us and break our bonds. They did a good job in my family. When we grew up, we uh, we were never a whole family ever again after we started going to the boarding school in 1955.
You literally spent your entire life in them, your entire childhood.
Yeah, and and when we got older, the older ones were married off or gone into the military. Everybody had their own perception of their reality. We all had the last name, but we were all told that there was no loving, no bonding all to us. And it was sure when we were drinking that we'd say we loved each other, but when we were sober, we had our own opinions and perspective of how life should be. That you know, it was really bad that it was sad to have that happen. When you don't have a connection with anybody. And all my parents and uncles and grandpas, they're all gone now. I'm the second oldest in my generation now. My sister is older than me. She's 82. She lives down the road from me. We talk and we see each other once in a while, but she's the one that keeps buying everything to make herself happy. She's only happy until she gets it, and then on to the next new thing to want to fill that emptiness in her. And it's sad to watch.
Do you feel this group that you all have now from the small group of survivors of the boarding school in Harbor Springs? Do you feel that that helps you in the healing process?
Yeah, it's nice to get out and share, and they're always happy when I come because then they can get a man's side of you, a male side of you, what happened to them. Well, because the girls and the boys were so separate all the time, what they were going through was probably about the same thing we were.
Pretty
But
similar, it seems.
yeah,
So, in sharing your story like this with the people of Michigan and anyone else who listens to this outside of Michigan, what do you hope that people realize?
I hope they realize that the tragedy of it all, what the native people had to go through, just trying to because the government figured it was all about they thought their point of view were better than anybody else's, and what happened was they just a bunch of dysfunctional and dysfunctional people that are still today trying to get back to where they one were before this all happened. They're trying to get their culture back. They're trying to become whole. And just because you're different, doesn't make you uh, it doesn't make you bad or less than somebody else. But it was just that uh, it always seemed like the English people mostly, if they if
Yeah.
they couldn't understand it, they would kill it. Even animals. Like they'd go out and shoot the lions and everything else, kill them off to extinction because they couldn't understand them, or just like they killed off all the buffalo because they knew the Indians needed the buffalo to live on. So they figured if they killed the buffalo, the Indians would go away. But we're all still here. I mean,
Thank goodness.
what? Yeah, yeah. It's but what I want people to understand is it's all right to be different nowadays. It's all right. Everybody's got their own right to seek happiness, to find their spirituality. And I think what is happening in this world now is there is no respect for somebody that doesn't agree with you. There's no love. I mean, everybody is just to get uh, at each other's throats all the time, trying to make them think their way. And one of the worst things that they got going on now is them colleges are very dangerous. I know my son goes to one up there, but you can tell the way his mind is changing, and he's always for and they they're picking picking size on something that me as a person went through. I went into these orphanages because I was different from from white people, and Jews, they got put in concentration camps. The Japanese were put in concentration camps because of World War II. And we're just if you're different, you're in trouble these days. It seems, but a lot of people, thank God we're all different. It would be a very boring world if we weren't,
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you.
because everybody has their own rights, and we should just leave it at that. Instead of trying to change people. By me telling my story, is I just want people to understand that we call it intergenerational trauma. What happened to my generation? Our perception of life got so warped, and we just pass that trauma on to the next generation, and they pass it on to their kids, and it keeps going because people won't acknowledge what happened. The parents won't talk, or their grandparents won't talk what happened. A lot of them are silent. They're still afraid of the government, and that's a hard thing to get through people.
Maybe with you and your group telling your stories out loud and sharing them, maybe that'll help encourage others and give
Yeah,
them the strength within to heal themselves and understand that there are people there for them that and who support them
sure.
in their healing journey. And So that's why I think it's positive that you all are talking about this. I was very happy when I came across the group, the post about the group talking about it in St. Ignace.
Yeah.
That's how I found you all, because a group of you did a talk in St. Ignace at the library, and I saw a post about it on Facebook. And I've been trying to connect with people in the Indigenous community to talk about this, and I've been hitting roadblocks and dead ends until I discovered the group. And now it's like it's splitting wide open, and I couldn't be happier, because I think it's a story that we need to tell. Your truth needs to be shared. The truth needs to be known. We need to know. And it's not a negative to know the history, the real history of the state, of this country. And so many people look at it as a negative and have this guilt behind it. And that's not the purpose of sharing the story. The purpose of sharing the story is healing and coming together. And like you said, we have diversity. We have so many different people, different cultures. That is a strength that we have as a country, not a weakness. And the more people that see that and realize that, the better off we are going to be, the stronger we're going to be. I truly believe that.
That's cool. Yeah.
I thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I'm very happy that you're well on your way in your healing journey. You know, I know it's a lifetime thing for sure, but you've come a long way. I think you're going to help others start to open up and talk about it as well.
Yeah, I'm just glad that I went to the VA to find out how to get started with it.
Yeah.
Which was,
I'm glad you had that resource, if that's what worked for
yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah,
And hopefully we can, maybe through this, create some other resources to help more people who went through this heal. You know, it's easy to blame people for being a certain way or acting a certain way, but very few people want to look at the trauma behind that behavior. And it's starting to happen more and more in society, where there's so much trauma, and that is that's the root of all of it. And like it's what you said, once you recognize it and acknowledge it, that's when the true healing starts. You have to acknowledge it.
that is true.
This is the end of episode 2. Join us next time for episode 3.